Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new. My name is Veda and this is The Simple Budget. Here on my channel I show you how my family is using the zero-based budgeting method in order to maintain a simplified financial life. If that sounds like content that you're interested in, I would love it if you would hit the subscribe button and join our little crew here. With that being said, let's get into today's video. Alrighty, well, hello everyone, and happy official October. I mean, it's been October for a day, but on my channel, it's not really the new month until we put up the budget with me. So if you happen to be new here and you're new in general to cash budgeting, cash stuffing, zero-based budgeting, which is the real key here, a budget with me is a really good piece of content to start with so that you can sort of get an idea for how it works. And I always try to at least go over a little bit as far as like tips and tricks are concerned for zero-based budgeting in these videos, because I always feel like when you're trying to get a handle on how to budget, and especially how to do a zero-based budget, it helps to listen to people who've been doing it for a little while and have a little bit of a handle on it. So that is what today's video is. These are always videos that do really well on my channel anyway. I think a lot of people, my bad, I just hit my knee on my table. I think a lot of people who are trying to jump into budgeting watch a budget with me to try to get as much information as they possibly can when they're getting started with something like this. So I'm gonna just go ahead and knock everything over, jump into my budget planner here. This is my I Am in Autumn dashboard. These are live in my shop right now. I have some available in my Oops section still. But I also, they're available for purchase. And we are in Q4. Very, very exciting. So just to kind of give you a sort of broad and very general and vague picture of how we sort of make this work. It really, when you're starting off on a budget, you want to look at your calendar for the month so that you can know when your pay dates are and if that's going to impact any of your bills and expenses. For example, mortgages are usually due, mortgages, rents, those sorts of things, they're due at the beginning of the month. And then your water bill, your electric bill, any utility, like you want to know where that falls in your month versus where your pay falls in the month, so you sort of know where you have to fund certain categories of your budget. This is something that I almost never go over on my channel because we have it down to a science, and showing you the totality of how we do our budget would be like probably content overload. So, but if you are new to the idea of budgeting in general, that's a really, really good place to start. Map out where your pays are throughout the month, and then figure out where your bills and expenses fall. Plan your funding of those categories around those expenses, and then everything else kind of works around that. So we have this down to a pretty reasonable science now. We've been doing this for over 1.5 years, and so we have it down. We've kind of figured out how we do things. My husband's income funds our entire household, and then my income from Etsy and YouTube help to supplement that. The other thing that Etsy and YouTube does, I am paid, technically my payday is every Monday, but we actually receive the money every Tuesday. So that means that this month is a magic month for Etsy. I get 5 pays instead of 4. But it also helps to serve for us as an account buffer. So this money, I only stuff my Etsy and YouTube money once a month. So if you do cash stuffing, you kind of have to plan around that too. Knowing when you're actually going to be pulling your cash out is completely dependent upon when you have cash in your checking account. And that is all based around when you get paid. So that's how we sort of map this out. Any kind of discrepancies that we have between my husband's 2 paychecks, because he's paid biweekly, we cover the difference by leaving my Etsy and YouTube money in here in our checking account throughout the course of the entire month until we're ready to stuff it at the end of the month. I know that a lot of this may seem confusing if you're new. Make sure that you're watching a bunch of content from a bunch of different content creators to find the people, one, that you really resonate with, but two, who maybe do a system in a similar way to how you would do it. I may not be that person for you. I may be that person for you. And if I am, that's wonderful. But this just kind of gives us a broad picture too of what the month is going to look like and how we can plan out when we fund certain categories in our budget. So keep that in mind as I'm going over my budget with you, that it's all based around this. We come up with a broad picture for the entire month of how we're going to fund each category. And then my husband and I go in off camera and do the behind the scenes work of like making sure that our stuffings are working in conjunction with pay. So if you are new to this in general, and this is exactly what my husband and I did when we first started zero-based budgeting, it took us a couple of months before we actually started stuffing cash. And that was because we really wanted to make sure that we had a handle on when money was coming in and when money was going out, and making that work within the confines of the actual dates on the calendar that impacted the inflow and outflow of our money. So be sure to kind of try to come up with a system that works for you, but know that you should be flexible and you should give yourself a little bit of grace when you're first starting, and knowing that things are going to change. It's not going to look the same from month to month. And this is actually a really good example of that as well. This month looks a little bit different to how we usually plan things. And so I'm going to kind of go over that with you as well, especially if you're new, this will be relevant to you. So anyways, I'm going to go ahead and jump in here. Excuse me. By the way, this budget planner is available in my Etsy shop in a variety of different ways. You can download and print it yourself. You can download you can download the link that I have. Well, it's not a link. It's sort of a link. Either way, I have it available for you to put in a tablet. If you have any sort of tablet planner situation, I have it available in that format digitally. And then I also print it and ship it to you as well. So there are a couple of different options. My Etsy shop is always linked below if you're interested in any of the handmade products that you see here: dashboards, placeholders, cash envelopes, so on and so forth. And I actually will be having some really fun products coming to the shop soon that I'm really, really excited to share with you guys. So anyways, that's completely off topic. I'm going to go ahead and zoom you guys in and we will get into the budget itself. Okay, here we go. So I have you guys zoomed in here and we will jump in because my budget with me videos always take a little bit longer to film, and I'm just a little bit more chatty in these, but I do like to try to give you guys as much information as is humanly possible as well. So if I'm overly chatty, I do apologize, but I try to make these as helpful and educational as possible. So we are in the month of October. Yay! And so we're just going to jump right into it. I'll go over how this month is going to be different from us, sort of as different for us after we get into this, but it'll all make sense is the moral of the story. So first up, we start with income. Now, as I mentioned earlier, I do get paid from Etsy and YouTube, but we do not include that in our budget overview for the month. That is something that we use to supplement our budget with. So if I feel like we are a little bit light in certain categories, I will fill in. I will have a goal number in mind that I want to fill in or supplement the category that we have here and how much money we're actually putting toward it. So I will do that with it, but it is not part of our planned budget overview for the month. It's only my husband's income. So with that in mind, we will just start off here with Mr. Simple's income. And actually, I'll just write it down here. It's going to be $8,627.18. And so this is the number that we work off of whenever we're coming up with a plan for our budget. So we basically, a zero-based budget is you're giving every dollar a plan. We go down to the cent because why not factor that into the equation? We always do that with the change that comes into the house that gets budgeted too. It usually gets swept into our emergency fund. But anyways, first up, obviously, like I was mentioning earlier, you're kind of planning everything around the dates on the calendar and when certain things get funded. So our mortgage comes out at the beginning of the month. So actually we spend the entire month saving up mortgage money for the next month. I guess that technically makes us 1 month ahead, but we don't really fall into that. Like, we don't focus on being 1 month ahead necessarily. We do roll over a buffer in certain categories from month to month, but by and large, we just make sure that the bills are paid when the bills are due. And so that is how you can come up with your like funding plan, like when you make sure that you have certain money earmarked for certain categories at certain times. But a monthly budget overview is just, we know that the money is going to be taken out or used in some capacity throughout the month, and this is what we plan to put toward those things. And so this is how we do that. We always start with bills and expenses first, and mortgage. Mortgage is the most important thing because we would like to remain living where we live. So our mortgage is $2,345.87 a month. And then next up, we have our water bill, and our water bill is one that fluctuates slightly from month to month. We have not been giving it as enough the last few months. And this is something that, again, like I was saying earlier, you really just want to remain as flexible as you possibly can with your budgeting and understanding that things are going to change, especially when you have utilities that change from month to month. We always try to budget we like to, my recommendation is to look at the last 3 to 6 months of your utilities, especially your more expensive months, so that you can figure out, okay, it might not go over this number. And then you can put maybe a little bit less toward that, so that on your months where your utilities aren't as high, you just roll that money over from month to month so that it covers your expensive months. So we had not been doing that with water. Well, we have. It's just sometimes things go up and you don't anticipate it. So this month we're going to be putting $130 toward it. We had been putting anywhere from like $110 to $115. So we're doing $130 this month. And our life insurance is going up because we are in the process of changing all of that over. I am nearly 40 years old and we have not had a life insurance policy for me. And we are increasing my husband's. We do have small ones for our kids, but we hadn't had one for me. So now our life insurance, I don't even remember, it went from around like $40 something. And so we're putting $113.34 toward it this month. And this is what it will be moving forward. It might change a little bit. We're not really 100% sure what the total cost of it will be, but this will be good for us for a little while. Next up is car insurance. Oops. And this is one that fluctuates a little bit here and there as well. This month we're putting $120 at it. That seems to be a pretty decent number for it. Next up is jujitsu, and this is one that is changing for us because my son is no longer doing it, just Mr. Simple is, and so our cost is coming down a little bit, and so it's going to be $116.10. My son it wasn't like his favorite activity to do, and he has started playing tennis at school, and he really likes that, so we're just going to roll with it. Next up is internet. This one never changes, and it is $55.54. Next up is our cell phone, and I swear we have been talking about changing cell phone providers since I started this channel. We still have not done that. And so this month it's $115. Quite a few of you have mentioned that Mint Mobile is also a good one. I would love your input on that because I am very hesitant to switch providers just because our service is bad enough as it is. And that's part of what makes me not want to switch. It's like, whatever, let's just, if they're all terrible, just go with the one that we have and know. T-Mobile is supposed to do really well here, but a couple of you have mentioned Mint. So I'm just curious to see how many of you have them and use them and appreciate them. And especially if you live in the DFW area or just Texas in general and Mint Mobile works for you, I would love to know. Next up is our electric bill. And this one got up a little high on us because of using all of the air conditioning. But hopefully, since we're cooling down here, that will start to go down as well. We are budgeting $205 for that this month. Okay, next up, we're going to enter into the conversation of how things are changing for us a little bit this month. They're not really changing. This is just a different month for us. So my husband's parents are coming into town, and it wasn't like a thing that we had planned. It was something that sort of like, I don't want to say it cropped up last minute because we've known about it for a little while, but it wasn't like in our vacation plans, so to speak. Like we didn't set vacation money aside for this. And so in order to account for their visit, what we've decided to do this month is to give $500 less toward our emergency fund, which is something that I know like hardcore Dave Ramsey apologists would probably frown on. But again, well, if you're new here, it won't be again. You will not know this information, but we've paid off our debt and we're saving up 6 months of expenses in our high yield savings account as an emergency fund to use for an emergency. And so, while I know that, the purpose of getting your financial life in order is to follow Dave Ramsey's baby steps, and I highly, highly recommend people follow them. My husband and I don't necessarily follow the Dave Ramsey method to the T exactly the way that he recommends doing things, but we definitely follow. Hi there.
Hi.
You say hi to the people. We definitely follow the Ramsey baby steps as closely as we can and want to. I don't want to say can, because we definitely could be more aggressive than we are at this point, especially now that we paid off our debt. When we were paying our debt off, we were hyper aggressive. And even though we definitely didn't do things exactly the way that Dave Ramsey recommends that you do them, we were still very intense and very intentional about the way that we lived our financial lives during that process. Now that that's over and we are into the emergency fund savings portion of the Ramsey method, obviously we're having a month like this where we're not diverting the entirety of our spare cash every single month toward our emergency fund this month. $1,500 to put toward our emergency fund is still wonderful. It's just not the $2,000 that we are usually trying to achieve. That being said, none of this is going on a credit card. We're going to have a great time with my husband's parents. And so this is just one of those things that happens. And in order to accommodate visits from people, you have to spend money. And so we want to make sure that we have enough money there in order to support this visit and have a good time with them and all that sort of stuff. So anyways, so first up in making sure that we have enough money is increasing our grocery budget for the month. And so usually our grocery budget is $1,900, which is expensive enough as it is. I think it's expensive. Well, and I certainly have a lot of people who comment every now and then and say how expensive it is. We are going to be putting an extra $200 toward our groceries this month. We may end up putting a little bit more toward that. We're just going to kind of see how things flesh out. They're not going to be here for a super long period of time, but definitely long enough to make sure that we have good food sitting around for them to eat as well. So our grocery budget, so part of the $500 that we are pulling away from, oh my gosh, my pen. You guys will know that I struggle with these pens around here, but I'm like, oh, look, now I can't even spell. Grocery. I don't even remember what I was saying. Either way, groceries is, so the $500 that we are not putting toward our emergency fund is going to be split between groceries and family fun, because we have some plans for things to do with his parents when they're here. So instead of groceries being $1,900, it's going to be $2,100 this month, which is and it's almost my mortgage. It's absolutely insane. Anyways, that's how we're handling that. Next up is gas. This is just gas for our car. This is one of those categories of our budget that we almost never go over in a month. And so we always have rollover from month to month, which is nice because in a month like this, we don't actually have to increase the budget. We can just use the rollover that we have built up over the last several months. We'll also be using it in December because we are going home to see my family at Christmas time. And so we'll be tapping into our gasoline rollover during then as well. But that's why we're not decreasing our gas budget either, because we want to allow for that rollover to build up so that we can utilize it whenever we see fit. If your budget is super duper tight and you need that spare $20 or $30 or whatever it is, absolutely don't build up a rollover. If you're struggling within the confines of your budget to just pay the basics from month to month, don't worry about having a buffer in certain categories. Just worry about getting the things paid that you need to pay right away. That's always my first recommendation rather than worrying about being a month ahead or building up a buffer or whatever it is. Pay what you need to pay when you need to pay it. There's no sense stressing yourself out about trying to get ahead of the game when you're struggling in the here and now. So I'll step off that soapbox. Our gas budget is $150 a month. Next up, we've got household and toiletries, and these categories in my budget, I swear, are ones that I can never get a number nailed. I swear to God, this pen. I can never get a number nailed down. We either have a lot of money in these categories or not enough money in these categories, and probably my remedy for that will be once our emergency fund is paid off and we increase what we give to certain categories every single month, these will be categories that are positively impacted in that way. For now, we're just sort of working within the numbers that we have here. We're close. We're just not quite there yet. So household this month is getting $70 and toiletries is getting $80 because we're doing okay-ish in household, but we are basically empty in toiletries after September. Next up, we have subscriptions, and this one is kind of fluctuating a bit on us. Oh my gosh. Okay. And so I'm just giving it an even $50 this month. I'm going to throw this pen out the window. Hold on, I found another pen. There we go. We're giving this one an even $50 this month until we kind of sort out, because we sometimes will cancel some subscriptions and open up other ones. And so we're kind of in flux right now. And so I'm just putting $50 at it this month. Next up are categories of our budget that are high priorities, but we're saving up a very small amount of money in each category. And so they get sort of bumped to the end, but they're things that are important for us to make sure that we're putting money toward. Taxes, we put $30 a month toward so that we can pay the person who does our taxes for us. Our HOA, oh, this one wants to skip too. I have the worst pen luck. If you guys have good pens that don't skip that you love, please send me recommendations because I'm about to throw all of my pens out the window. So our HOA is $17 a month. We pay this one every January. So $17 gets us to where we are needing to be. Next up, we have Finance Coach, and because I always get questions about this one, I will just tell you up front. The Finance Coach is actually a subscription service that we pay for that is specific to my husband's job, and this person watches the stock market and knows a lot about all of that voodoo, and he makes recommendations for where to move your retirement funds from month to month. And so we pay for it. It's $60 a year, and it is definitely worth the $60. And so it gets $5 a month because of that. Oh my gosh, I cannot win with these pens. Okay. Next up are union dues. This is also for my husband's job. And in order to have enough, I think it's October, we put $15 a month toward this one. Okay, so I'm gonna grab my calculator here and then I will just add all of this stuff up. I'm gonna zoom you guys through this. Watching me add is not exciting. And then when we get to the end of the section, I'll tell you what we do next. Alrighty, so the total for our bills and expenses section is $5,717.85. And so then what we move on to next are our sinking funds. And these are categories of your budget that you may not use the money for every single month, but you will use the money for at some point throughout the year. And they're things that you really want to spend time thinking about for your budgeting. Sorry, I'm just trying to like get my pages in order here. Yeah, so they're categories that you really want to spend some time thinking about. You're not going to remember everything up front. Looking at your last few months of expenses is a really good way of trying to come up with different sinking fund categories in order for you to make sure that you have the most comprehensive budget as possible when you're starting off. But again, you may need to add things as you go along, and that's going to shift around the way that you do your budgeting. But this was the most sort of like life-changing aspect of our budget. When we first started budgeting, it was something that, especially as the months went on and we were spending money that we had put aside for these categories, it was like one of those revolutionary things where you're sitting there and you're like, I can't believe we never budgeted this way before. This is magical. So if you are wondering if this budgeting system works, I can offer you a resounding yes. No other budget has ever worked in our house before this system, and I love, love, love having a plan for those little expenses that creep up throughout the year that you don't think about necessarily from month to month, but you are thinking about, you are funding, and the money is sitting there and waiting for you when you need it the most. And that has been the part of budgeting that I have enjoyed the most of all of this, because it's something that you don't even realize, but makes perfect sense when you're sitting there and you're like, actually, yes, it's super duper important that we're putting money aside for Christmas. Yes, it's very important that we're putting money aside for school expenses and, birthday gifts and just things like that we never really thought about before. And then those times of the year would kind of creep up and you're like, oh shoot, where are we going to get this money from? And that has what's gotten us in the past too, is even if we were trying to budget, not thinking about those expenses that kind of creep up here and there were things that would always throw us for a loop. And so now it's something that we've got to plan for. So I'll go over what ours look like for you, and you'll kind of see how the system all works for itself. So first up, we have car expenses. And this is one that obviously is super important, because whether you're getting a car wash or you need to change a tire or you need to get your oil changed, which is regular maintenance on your car, that kind of stuff costs money. We also throw in our car registration expense into this as well. And so we make sure that is money that we specifically and deliberately set aside. So that costs us $7 a month in order to get it done annually. And then the other $50, because we put $57 aside for car expenses every single month. The other $50 is sort of twofold. One, because since we are relatively new to budgeting, we put $50 a month toward those sorts of things, because even though that's more than we're going to need in a month's time, it will also help to supplement our emergency fund if we need to do something drastic to our car. But it also, in the meantime, is helping us establish a nice little fund for our car to make sure that we always have money there for an oil change and things like that. So that's why we landed on the number 57. 7 for the car registration, 50 for anything that comes up for our car. And the pen is skipping again. Oh my goodness. Okay. Next up, we have home maintenance. And this is one that we spend from more regularly than we used to. But again, it's for anything in your home that may crop up on you and you're like, oh shoot, we need to, change the filter in our air conditioner, or we need to service our ice maker. I don't know. I'm just like, I know. I know. You know, some people have those fancy ice makers that give you like the little crushed ice that you have at the hospital when you're in labor. So maybe it's, oh, he just went outside. I was talking to him and he was ignoring me. Anyways, so for home maintenance, we are budgeting $50 this month. And then over here, what I do is I include money that I want to supplement with our Etsy and YouTube pay. And so this month I wanted to put another $50 toward home maintenance because this is a fund that we have been spending a lot from lately. And so I want to try as best as I can to try to build it back up.
Gotta make sure we keep that ice maker working.
Listen to you. I couldn't think of anything. And you walked away when I was mid-conversation with you, not just with the people. So rude. Anyways, so yeah, I'm going to be supplementing it with Etsy and YouTube pay this month, an additional $50. Next up, we have medical. And this is another one that probably once we get decent amounts of money set aside for some of these really high priority expenses, in addition to having our emergency fund, because our emergency fund is obviously there for emergencies, but things like home maintenance, medical, car expenses, these are categories of the budget that are so high priority that I want to make sure that we have a decent amount of money earmarked for each of them individually as well. And then that way I can maybe lower what I'm giving them every single month, but the money is still building in there for when we will need to use it. So medical is another one of those. I am budgeting $75 this month, and then I am going to be supplementing it with Etsy and YouTube, an additional $25. Next up, we have our clothes budget, and this one really took a hit for back to school. So I'm still kind of, budgeting a little bit more. Oh my gosh, why don't you want to write a C? Like, what kind of science is this? I give up. The pen wins. So I'm budgeting $50. Oh my gosh. I'm budgeting $50 this month, and then I'm going to be supplementing it an additional $50 as well. Again, this one really took a hit, and I'm really trying to build it back up again so that it is a little bit more reasonable to pull from in the event that we need to purchase some more clothes. Mostly for our kids. My husband and I really try to fund our own clothing budgets from our own personal spending, but I still want to make sure that we have money there because you just never know when my kids are going to grow. Haircuts is up next, and this one funds my husband and both of my kids' haircuts, and we put $70 a month toward that one, and I'm not supplementing it. His and hers, this is, oh my gosh, this is my husband and I's spending money. He gets $50 a month. Can you hear me growling? And I get $175. We know there's a discrepancy. I talk about this every single month when I do the budget. So if you've been here a while, I do apologize. But my husband does jujitsu. And so, he gets spending money from that. Or that's like part of what would be his spending money, so to speak. And I do not do jujitsu. And so I just get all of my spending money. Next up is dine out. And this just covers the odd expense where every now and then we may grab a bite to eat from out of the house. We really don't do that very often. But I like to have the money there as like a just in case sort of thing. And so I'm putting $30 toward it. Next up, we have dates, and this funds my husband and I being able to go out on a date. This is one that we'll see an increase as well once we get our emergency fund saved up, because we do want to go out on a date more regularly than we do now. But for the time being, this is just what we do. We put $30 a month toward it. And I'm going to actually go ahead as well this month and supplement it an additional $30 with Etsy and YouTube pay. Next up is family fun, and this is another one that's going to see a little bump with what we would have been putting toward our emergency fund, and this is so we can do some fun activities while my husband's parents are in town, and so it's going to be getting $300 this month. Whoa, come on. Like, why? I want to know why it will not write the first number, but it will write additional numbers. Like, what kind of science is this? Anyways, it's no science at all is what it is. Gifts is up next, And this one is just getting $40 this month. I did go ahead and buy, I mentioned it in yesterday's video that I was making this sweet little pumpkin arrangement for a friend of mine who is finishing up her breast cancer treatment today, in fact. I haven't made the arrangement yet, so, but I'll definitely be posting a picture of it so that you guys can see whenever I do. I posted the inspo picture in yesterday's video, and I'm really hoping that I can make it look at least somewhat as beautiful as that picture. But like I said, I'll definitely show you guys once I get the arrangement made. So anyways, but buying the flowers for it came from gifts. So, and buying the pumpkin for it as well. Next up is Partay. Partay funds our kids' birthday parties and anytime we host anybody here in our house. We just did a big brunch last Saturday, which completely depleted the envelope. So for the month of October, I am budgeting $45 for Partay, but I'm going to go ahead and supplement it an additional $25 with my Etsy and YouTube income. And then this is a big one. So back to school really took a hit. Also, we spent a lot on school supplies for our kids, and then I had to buy my son's yearbook, and so it's just depleted. And so we're putting $70 toward it this month. And then with Etsy and YouTube, I'm gonna go ahead and supplement it an additional $30. I really want to make sure that we've got money in here because throughout the school year, we also have other things that we pay for, like school pictures and field trips and all of it. So I just want to make sure that we have the money sitting there for those occasions as well. This is another one that we'll probably work toward making sure that we funnel more money to throughout the school year in a more thoughtful way rather than always trying to scrape and find money to put toward it. So, we're going to have to work out those kinks, but that's something that comes with budgeting. We have a handle on the system that we use. We just have to have a little bit of fluidity and flexibility within that system. And next up, we've got our little holidays. So these are things that we don't spend a ton of money on, but we want to make sure I spelled that right. We want to make sure that we do have money there to use. And so Valentine's Day gets $5 a month from us. Easter gets $7 a month. Halloween, sure, we're just not gonna write H's now, or A's. That's super fun. There we go. Halloween gets $12 a month from us. Thanksgiving is getting $40 this month. And Christmas, this is not a little holiday. Christmas gets $275 a month. I don't know that I'll ever really change that budget. It may go up. I doubt that it will go up, but it will never go down ever. And then we also have a sinking fund for our pool membership. We pay for this every summer so that we can go to our local pool. That costs us $32 a month. And then right now we don't have any vacation plans we know what at least one of our vacations is going to be next summer. It's going to be a shorter one, and it's going to be with my husband's family. We're not really sure what that's going to cost, and there's a potential that we may be going back east again next summer as well. We're not really 100% sure, so we're not earmarking a ton of money toward vacation right now, but whenever I can, I like to throw some money toward it. And so it's getting $50 this month as well. So that's going to do it for our sinking funds. I'm going to go ahead and add this section up as well, and then we'll get into everything else. All right. So the total for the sinking fund section is $1,463. And actually, let me add up my supplemental so that I have an idea of that as well. So 50, 25, 50, 30, 25, and 30. And that's going to be $210. So I just need to make sure from Etsy and YouTube that I am supplementing these categories this month, which will be super duper helpful for us, as time goes on. Whenever we can supplement these things, it's super important that we do. And then next up, we don't have debt. So we have our savings section at the bottom. There we go. And so we have three things that we count for savings every single month. Like I've mentioned before, we have our emergency fund. And then we have investment accounts for our son and daughter. So I'll just do boy and girl. And so what we do for them is $25 each a month. And I know it doesn't sound like much, but it really, really does add up. I promise you. And this money is the money that they'll be able to use for anything when they get older. Highly, highly recommended if you have kids and you have the spare money. You would be surprised how quickly $25 adds up a month. And because they're an investment account, they get like compound interest and all that stuff too. So it's a really, really good thing to do. So now what we have to do, we started with, let me fix that. We started with $8,627.18. Then we subtract the let me try that again, $8,627.18. And then we subtract the $5,717.85 from the bills and expenses section, the $1,463 from the sinking fund section, and then this $50 down here for the kids' investment accounts. And that leaves us with $1,396.33. Now, I know I said that I wanted to put $1,500 toward it. This is what we have to do every single month after we do our budgeting, making sure that we hit our goal number. So our goal number is usually $2,000 a month. But like I said, we took 500 of that and we put it in other expenses to cover my husband's parents' visit into town. So now I just want to make sure that we're getting to 1,500. So what I do is just subtract 1,500, and that leaves me with $103.67 that I am going to have to take from my Etsy and YouTube pay and supplement toward our emergency fund this month. We are actually in October. And so that's our plan. And this is what it looks like to do a zero-based budget. And this is something, like I said, when we first started, one of the things that always hung us up when we were trying to do budgeting systems in the past was not planning for things that do come up. They just don't come up every single month. Like, we're not shelling out cash for medical expenses every single month, but we will at some point make a medical type purchase, and making sure that we have the money set aside and earmarked for that is super crucial in order to be able to stay in your budget, not use credit cards, pay down your debt, save for other goals. All of that matters. We do have two other categories in our budget that we never ever fund with our main budget. It is only ever supplemented with side income, and that is any house projects that we're working on and home decor, because that is like the very, very bottom rung of importance as far as creating a budget is concerned. But I'm telling you that because one of the things that I found helpful when we first started budgeting was watching other people's content and getting ideas for what categories to use in my own budget. Obviously, I don't use every category that everybody uses, and you won't either, but it's helpful to know what people do so that you can kind of create your own plan based off of your own needs and what maybe you didn't think about that somebody else talked about. So that's why I bring it up now. So I'm going to just go ahead and zoom right out and we will finish out this video. All right, everyone. Well, that is it. This is how you do a zero-based budget. This is how you make a plan for every dollar or cent, depending on how fanatical you are, that comes into your home. And like I was saying, just to piggyback off of that, it really, really is the best budgeting system that we have ever used. It has been the system that has helped us to stay on track. Obviously, a lot of self-discipline factors into the equation, but when you have a good system to start with and you're tracking your expenses and you're making sure that you're staying on budget, the system really does a boatload of that work for you. You have to be the person to tell yourself no, that you're not going to buy something, but the plan is really what sets you up for success as well. So if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask me. I love for all of us to try to help each other, especially those of us who are new to this system and just budgeting in general. And I know, especially the way that the country is now, and inflation is really high and finances are really scary for people. Having a good system in place really helps you get established and walking away from the things that frighten you as far as your finances are concerned. And I cannot recommend the system to you enough. So anyways, thank you guys so much for tuning in to today's video. And if you enjoyed it, I would love it so much if you would give me a thumbs up and leave me a comment down below. And like I mentioned, this is a content heavy week, so I will be back with you guys tomorrow with my Etsy and YouTube cash stuffing for the month of September. So this is all the money that we brought into the house for the month of September through my Etsy shop and my YouTube channel. So stay tuned for that if it's something that you're interested in. And yeah, I look forward to being back here with you guys again tomorrow. I hope that you have a great rest of your Wednesday, and I will see you Thursday. Bye, everyone.